On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, what's one question mark for every player on the roster?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast and the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunderpod. Email the show, lothunderpod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by FanDuel, we're asking one question of every player on the roster ahead of this season. So you can start the season with a big return at FanDuel. Place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. And that's right. Not only is football season in full swing, but we're back. We're back to 5 days a week here on Locked On Thunder. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover this season. Media Day is in a week from now. Training camp starts the very next day. It's going to be a fun season, so make sure you're ready for it by subscribing to Locked On Thunder and leaving a like on YouTube and also anywhere you get your podcast from. But on today's show, we are asking one question of every Thunder player. So let's go through it. For SGA, the question is pretty simple. Can SGA add a three-point shot? Because we've seen SGA improve every single season in Oklahoma City. What's that next evolution of his game? And for me, it's between two different areas. Can he refine the playmaking leap he took a year ago, which did look improved from even that mark this summer in the Olympics? And can he add a three-point shot? And ultimately, if he becomes a more consistent and a little bit of higher volume three-point shooter, then it really takes Shai and this offense that was already both top five in the NBA to another gear. So Shai's question is pretty simple. I think that Lu Dort's question is also simple. Can Lu Dort finally finish at the rim? His career high happened last year, and it was 57%, which is still only in the 22nd percentile, according to Cleaning the Glass. Now, he's fixed his inefficiencies in other areas. Like last year was a massive step forward from him in terms of being efficient. And he admitted all throughout last year that it was a byproduct of cutting out bad shots. And I think if you cut out some of those bad drives, this rim number continues to climb as well, which is why it climbed a year ago. But now whenever you're not opposed of Josh Giddey, where both of those guys were defended in similar ways, of course, Josh Giddey a bit more exaggerated, but now you don't have that opposite of you. Can Lu Dort finally finish at the rim? Because he's never been just some horrid three-point shooter past his rookie season, and he has the frame to be encouraging, of course, in the lane and at the rim. Can he finally put it together there? Because he really, really has fixed his efficiency everywhere else on the floor, and he's turned into just such an incredible 3-and-D guy. If he can take that step at the rim and add another level to his scoring, that can help his viability in a big way. For Alex Caruso, my question for him is, can he fill in as a playmaker? Because I think that there's a double-edged sword of this just blanket statement where when people are going to preview this team here in a few weeks, they're going to say, how can you replace the playmaking of Josh Giddey and the usage of Josh Giddey? Yes, that is true. Like Josh Giddey as an individual is a really, really good playmaker. The role that he played and the role that the Thunder want that position to be played is easier and better filled by Alex Caruso. But even with Josh Giddey a year ago and all of his illustrious playmaking, you still walked away from the most important games of the season discussing the fact that the Thunder, at times could have used a better table setter, a better playmaker to get a complementary piece next to a J-Dub, next to a Chet, especially in that secondary unit. And so while I think that the one-for-one swap of like Giddey's playmaking versus Caruso's playmaking. If you only took those two heads up and looked at their playmaking rating on 2K, obviously Josh Giddey is a better playmaker. However, if you're looking at what you're asking this specific playmaker to do, like in Oklahoma City, what do we want from that table setter next to Chet, next to J-Dub? You want them to be more connective. You want them to just get the ball out quick and to be decisive in that way and be more deferral. Caruso can do all of that. So, like, how good is he as a playmaker that he did show in Chicago? How good can that translate to that secondary unit? And not to say that Caruso will or won't come off the bench, but it's obvious that, like, they're going to stagger players as they staggered, Josh, J-Dub, and Chet last year to the secondary unit. So I think that Caruso's playmaking question mark is going to be a big one, because a lot of this can ride on him and Cason, and we'll get to Cason later, of, they've addressed almost everything. Like, they addressed the ill-fitting Josh Giddey. They addressed their front court concerns. But the only thing that has not been officially just massive check mark was that feeling of needing another table setter. J-Dub's question: are you ready? Like, this season boils down to, is J-Dub and is Chet, are they both ready to become the number 2 and 3 scoring option? That's the bottom line. They have the rotation necessary to win a title. They have the coach necessary to win a title. They have the number 1 option necessary to win a title. Do you have the 2 and 3? And J-Dub's question won't be answered until the postseason, because you've seen everything in the regular season. Of course, he's still going to improve. He has tremendous ceiling. He has, the insane work ethic. It's not to say that this doesn't matter. The 82 games here for J-Dub doesn't matter. But the biggest question for him, you cannot get answered until April, like until the playoffs start. Because, he had it rolling against New Orleans, so did everybody else. You don't sweep a team without everybody being rolling. Against Dallas, I thought he was excellent defensively for what the team needed from him. Offensively, that wasn't good enough as a number 2 scoring option. And I think that J-Dub would tell you that. Like, it just was not a good enough offensive punch next to Shai. That's got to get figured out, of how you translate the regular season scoring punch to the postseason. And I think that the cast of characters around him this year helps that. It's not all on J-Dub. The cast of characters for sure helps that. And helps you translate it. But you got to see him do it. For Chet Holmgren, we lumped him into the "are you ready" question, so I'll give him a new question. For Chet Holmgren, can you consistently shoot over smaller defenders? Because that's the next step for him as a scorer, is taking advantage of those mismatches and being able to create your own offense in that way. So many times last year, Chet was looking, before the ball even graced his fingertips, he was looking for the next pass. And that's awesome. That's selfless. That's playmaking in his position being a huge plus. But by the same token, you're also the second or third best scorer on this team. I would say third behind J-Dub, but that's not a slight. At times, you shooting the basketball is better than whoever you're going to pass the ball to, especially when your counterpart is 6'2", like is 6'3", as some guards, even some wings. And it's been encouraging to see his summer workouts and to hear him himself talk about that's what he's working on. Because as he gets more comfortable, again, last year, that's a massive injury to come back from. And then because he looks so good, let's not lose the context, though. The context of the day that he got hurt was, this is a weird injury. This is a Julio Jones. He had the injury. Can you ever come back? Can you ever be right from it? This is a football injury, not a basketball injury. Will he ever be the same again? And then he went out and played all 82 games, plus the postseason, plus the preseason, and looked incredible. But now that you trust yourself more, now that you have that body of work more in the NBA, can you become a more viable scoring option on your own? And the fact that he's acknowledged that is a good step in the right direction, because I think he can do it physically. I think he can do it talent-wise and skill-wise. So him acknowledging that is half the battle, because we know his work ethic. We know how good he can be. So that's the projected starting 5 that I have, and their question marks. Coming up, question marks for the rest of this Thunder roster. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel today, because FanDuel's great. It's America's #1 sports book. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Right now, you can go there and place your bets, because you can check out the latest stats, You can view live play-by-play and so much more at the page of FanDuel. But when you get started today, you'll get started with a $200 bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So your first $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. And of course, you can bet on the NFL. You can also bet on college football, as that's hot and heavy right now across the state. But maybe you're only into the NBA on this side of things. Guess what? You can already place your bets on the NBA, including opening night Thunder in Denver. Thunder, 2.5-point underdogs. Will they pull out the win? You can go place your bets at FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Well, we're back talking about your one questions. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA for the national scope of basketball. Also check out Locked On Sooners, massive quarterback change. Locked On Pokes, a disastrous quarterback situation there as well. You can check all that out wherever you get your podcast from, and subscribe to Locked On Thunder for free as well, anywhere you get your podcast from. So we went through our whole starting lineup. Now, what does the bench look like for the question marks? And leave your questions for these players down below, or what you think these questions will be answered like, or where you disagree. First off the bench, Isaiah Hartenstein. My question for Isaiah Hartenstein is, what's the balance? What does the balance look like of a lot of different categories? So this is one question to cheat and blanket a ton of different questions. Number one, what is the balance of shooting threes? Because, he made no bones about the fact that New York did not let him shoot threes. The Thunder and Hartenstein, both with Sam Presti and Hartenstein talking during his intro presser, made no bones about the fact that they think that he still has a lot of upside, that he's only 26 years old. They're going to explore his game and alluding nonstop to this shooting threes. But at times, you wonder if the further you get away from the rim to beat teams up on the glass and to be a presence around the rim, does that negate some of what you signed him for? So I think that there has to be a balance there of, you're not expecting him to go and be this stretch five, you're shooting 7 threes a night, but you're also not expecting him to go 1 for 3 from 3 for the whole season. So where does that fall? I think it falls similarly to the Clippers, maybe a little bit more than the 30 attempts he had for the Clippers. I don't think that you want him just launching them, though. Now, the Thunder play a style, more so than any of his previous stops, that are more conducive to, within the flow of an offense, getting big men shots. I mean, you saw what they do for J-Will, what they do for Chet. That is just the style that they play. And so the ability to shoot the ball is going to be a good thing for Hartenstein and OKC. But where does it all level out at, is my big question for how you balance that. How do you balance playing him with Chet, playing him alone, being a starter, being a bench player? How do you balance what the minutes look like for him? Because I think that the allotment of minutes, we kind of understand, but when do you deploy them for Hartenstein, for Chet? What does that look like? So the big question for Isaiah, what's the balance? For Isaiah Joe, another Isaiah. My question is there another gear? He looked better last year as an on-ball scorer. Is that, real? Is that a step that he can take again? Does he have another leap as an on-ball scorer in the mid-range? Because that can help the secondary unit. I think that people maybe don't, realize how much they're going to still be searching for on-ball scoring in the secondary unit that's not J-Dub, that's not Chet, whenever Chet gets staggered out there. They're going to need someone to step up. And Joe at times stepped up. But is there another gear to get to, or is this just Isaiah Joe? And that's not a slight. If this is all Isaiah Joe is, quote unquote, that's still a heck of a basketball player. That is still a top bench piece in the NBA. So it's still a great thing. But I wonder if the tease that you saw a year ago in the mid-range, if that can elevate itself again. Because now you're playing in a 2-man game with Hartenstein. Now you have a different look this season. For Aaron Wiggins, is there a leap in minutes coming for Aaron Wiggins? So Wiggins' career, he's gone 24 minutes per game, down to 18 minutes per game, down to 15 minutes per game so far. Can you get that back up to 20 minutes per game now that you have the security of a long-term contract? And the contract, I think, signifies how the organization views him. And he I think is one of the best players on this team in terms of whenever you're carving out your rotation. Obviously, we know Mark is going to explore this roster. We know that there's going to be some lineup changes they want to make to get some data points and things like that. But overall, night in and night out, Wiggins will give you the best chance and one of the most versatile chances of if you see somebody twist an ankle, get sick, can't go that night, whatever, he can fill in for so many different spots that I think that Wiggins is going to be someone who plays a lot. Obviously, you would hope so. But a lot of times last year, again, only 15 minutes per game, you looked back a lot of times last year and said, I wish that Wiggins would have played more. So what does the leap look like for him in minutes per game now with the contract and everything else? For Cason Wallace, my big question is, can he be the backup point guard? Because as of right now, like people talk about this Thunder team as if they're this complete and perfect roster. And I get that. This team is spectacular because of the fact that last year they were top 5 offense defense. They won 40 games before 20 losses. They won 57 games total. They were the 1 seed in the West. They got their first playoff win since 2016. And then they lost in 6 games to Dallas in a game where a foul swings it from going 7 in the Paycom Center and the point differential was 0. So I get it. Like, I get why people are excited about this for a team that last year accomplished all that. They head into the offseason after losing to Dallas, and your 2 gripes were, hey, no front court depth, and hey, what are they going to do with Josh Giddey? They had to bench him. He didn't play very good last year. Like, what are they going to do with Josh Giddey? And you could not ask for a better Giddey replacement than Alex Caruso. You just could not do it. You could not find a better Giddey replacement than Alex Caruso. And you could not find a better backup big man than Isaiah Hartenstein. There is no better backup big than Isaiah Hartenstein. So I get it. Like, I get why the hype is real. They're the favorites to win the West. Spoiler alert. I'm going to pick them to win the Western Conference. Like I get it. But no team is perfect. I don't think that last year's Celtics team, and they were the closest thing, I don't think that they were perfect. And the early eyebrow raiser for me is guard play, especially on the bench. Like, what does it look like for being on ball on the bench? And Cason could be that backup point guard where we kind of have, as a collective group of Thunder observers, we've kind of pocketed him into, hey, you're just a 3-and-D guy from what we saw your rookie year. But he was kind of that out of necessity versus out of limitations. And Mark talked about this during the season last year of, Cason's been so good that we couldn't afford to send him down to the blue, let him work on being a point guard. The offseason would be huge for that development. Well, you've seen an offseason. Can he get back to that point guard background? Because if he can, like if his next gear is, hey, I can help you lead the secondary unit. I can set the table for J-Dub. You've got to respect me as a driver. And then whenever I get the ball to J-Dub, if he gets shut down, he can redirect it to me for 3. Like, if that's the role for Cason, then this team's even better than you thought. And that answers yet another question about this team. So I think that that's one of the bigger questions. And the thing about this Thunder team is we're going down this list of questions. We are nearly through the whole roster. We're at the 20-minute mark of this show. And every single question, if the answer goes the quote-unquote negative way, you still have a wildly successful team, a wildly successful season. Like, that's a testament in and of itself to how good this roster is, how complementary this roster is of each other, and a team that is poised to do just tremendous things this season. And it's going to be so fun to cover it all, and we'll be here for you every single day talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms. Coming up, what is the question for Kenrich, for J. Will, for the rookies in the 2 ways? But first, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors understands passion, drive, patience. That's the formula for winning a championship. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performances, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from, it's your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for at eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit. It's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back guaranteed. And with eBay Motors, you'll be burning rubber, not cash. Get them right now with all the parts you want at the prices you want as well. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home a huge win. Go to eBay Motors and keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions to apply. eBay Motors only available to U.S. customers. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Folks, for your next listen, check out Locked On NBA. Check out Locked On Pokes, Locked On Sooners, Locked On SEC, Locked On Big 12. And re-listen to Locked On Thunder if you want to. We'll be back again tomorrow with your mailbag questions. We'll also have plenty of guests this week and next week, spoiler alert. And we'll have you revved up for Media Day, for training camp, and everything from the latest from those fronts. Now let's continue on with our one questions. Kenrich Williams, can he find the fountain of youth? He's an old 30-year-old. I mean, he's got a lot of wear on that tire. He plays a physically demanding position. For his frame to play center position and do it well is physically demanding. This is back-to-back preseason injuries for him. With his knee injury this year, a back injury last year. At times a year ago, he looked a little stiff and sluggish a little bit. He fell out of the rotation during the playoffs, but he also at times last year was really good and effective during a large stint of that season, and fits the small ball style perfectly. So can he recover from this knee injury? Now you have a deeper team. Can you find a way to manage things to where you have a consistency from Kenrich physically and how he looks and how he's efficient to give you that wrinkle even come postseason time? Because one thing that I thought that Kenrich, he literally showed he was the difference in, but you, for whatever reason, just did not play him enough. And that could have been a multitude of things. We'll never know the real answer for why he didn't play. But he came into that Dallas series and he was the only player who matched the physicality of Dallas. Dallas, up until that point where he literally sparked a stare down pushing contest, was punking Oklahoma City. They just simply were. I mean, there were times where Isaiah Joe got hip checked into the tunnel. Nobody did anything. Dallas just owned that series physically, and Kenrich put a stop to it. And that's the value of Kenrich Williams, because he's one of the rare guys on this team so far that's shown that he is not going to put up with that. He's an enforcer. He's one of those guys, and you need those kind of guys to win a championship. And keeping Kenrich healthy and effective is going to be a big deal on this team. So can you get back to that for a sustained season? My question for Jay Will, does he play more at the 4? He only played 2% of his minutes there with Chet Holmgren, but it looked really good. He looked good, Chet looked good, but specifically Jay Will looked really good. Now that you have Isaiah Hartenstein, does he play more at the 4? Where he's a more natural fit, I feel like, at the 4 position. Ousmane Dieng. The question is simple. Can Ousmane Dieng play? Can he play in the NBA? I've been a massive proponent of Ousmane Dieng. I'll continue to be. I think that he did everything right last year. He went down to the G League and he truly improved his game in a large step as a physical player, in a large step as a player who's understanding situations better. Oos just played better, frankly, a year ago. And the team always understood that this was going to be a long process for Oos. What they didn't account for, and they couldn't have accounted for, was hey, this team's going to be a title contender by year 2 and 3 of Oos. And it's that wasn't the exact plan whenever that trade went down. So it's getting to a point, though, where you can rattle off 10 names that don't include Ousmane Dieng that you really want to see play. It's a really crowded rotation, and you have such high aspirations. How does he crack this rotation? Does he make the most of his minutes in a very small sample size? And that's where I want to give the Thunder credit. The Thunder did not just roll the ball out there for Oos last year and say, hey, go dominate G League competition and get your confidence up. The Thunder understood this guy is not going to be someone who we start. He's not going to be somebody who we envision to play on the ball the majority of his minutes and just go cook. So go back and watch Oos with the blue. He of course started with the blue, but watch his rotation pattern where he'd play 4 minutes at a time, he'd get benched. play 4 minutes at a time, get benched. They're conditioning him for like, hey, you've got to get in there. You're only going to play at a 4-minute segment, if that, and you've got to make an impact, and you've got to be ready to go. Like you can't take 5 of your minutes out of 10 to warm up and get acclimated and then start playing. You've got to play right away. And that's something that Cam Woods illustrated multiple times last year of the plan for Us, because that became a constant theme of what's the plan? What are you looking for? What are you hoping to see? And Cam over and over again kept telling me like, hey, the plan is play him in a role where the Thunder are going to use him and let him grow. And that he did. He grew tremendously a year ago. And he played 2 out of 3 summer league games really well. But you've got to see it at the NBA level. And so we'll see where that lands. For Dillon Jones, the question is, where does he play? Like, I think that Dillon Jones showed you he has some intangibles in summer league where I don't know that the advanced metrics will show it. I don't know that the basic stats will show it, but the eye test sure will. Like, he's an electrifying, winning type of player. The question is he a 4 in the NBA? Is he a guard? Is he a wing? Is he all the above? Like, what is he in the NBA? Because the best way to describe Dillon Jones is unorthodox. And arguably the best way to describe the Thunder is unorthodox. So where does he play? AJ Mitchell. My question for AJ Mitchell, is he next in line? The Thunder have a long lineage of converting two-way guys, and he's a two-way guy that has juice. This is someone who fits their driving kick style very well. He can score with the ball in his hands, and perhaps I'll throw his name in the ring. Perhaps he's the guy who steps up and becomes one of your best table setters for the secondary unit. So while the Thunder did not get a massive check mark for this question mark, as they did their other 2 of 3, they at least gave themselves a chance in the sense of they're going to be able to roll out there multiple different options to fill this spot. And they still have the roster spot open. They still have the trade deadline to adjust should they need to. So I think that they've done a good job in trying to fill that spot, so to say. Adam Flagler, can he be a better defender? That's my question for him. A year removed from his knee injury, he improved as the season went on last year as a defender. He looked improved defensively in summer league. Now you're further removed from that injury. Like, can you be a more improved defender? Because if Flagler can defend, and looking at it through the scope of the Thunder, if Flagler can defend and he's flanked by these Thunder defenders, because if you're listening to this show right now, I'll say it again. If you're listening to a Locked On Thunder podcast on September 24th in the year of our Lord 2024, you love basketball. So close your eyes right now, if it's safe to do so, and try to picture a lineup that Mark could throw out there where you'd say they're going to struggle defensively. So you can afford to get away with a 6'3" guy like Flagler out there if he improves a little bit defensively for what he can give you as a shot maker, and especially a 3-point shooter. Now, do you hope to ever lean on your two-way guys, especially with a team this deep? Of course. Like, they're two-way guys for a reason, but these guys all have a shot at least to make an impact. And then you have Alex Dukas. And my question for Alex Dukas is, anything else? It's a good shot. It's a good throw at the dartboard if you're the Thunder, because he's a tall shooter. And those are 2 big boxes to check. But to get to the next step of his NBA journey, he's going to have to add another wrinkle to his game. Can he do that? Is there anything else he can add this season where he goes from a really good option for the Blue to someone who teams look around and say, hey, I want that guy? So that's your question marks for every player on this roster. Thank you so much for listening to today's Locked On Thunder podcast. Subscribe for free anywhere you get your podcast from. And until tomorrow, whenever we have a mailbag question, which you can still get answers into on YouTube comments, on Twitter, and even on Reddit. We opened up the Reddit mailbag this week. You can go check that out. Until then, be good and be good to one another.